On June 12th, 2011, one of the greatest underdog moments happens when the Dallas Mavericks, who were 18-1 odds of winning the title, versus the Miami Heat, with Dirk Nowitzki beating the historic Big Three of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Today we dive into that series on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. Now let's dive into these two teams and how they got to the NBA Finals in 2011. And we're going to start with the Miami Heat, the heavy favorite, coming into the season after not only acquiring perennial all-star LeBron James, the face of the league at the time, as well as another perennial all-star, Chris Bosh, to add with their face the franchise, Dwayne Wade, giving them a Big Three, as they called it, which was popular at the moment after the Boston Celtics had just done it a few years earlier. And this team was stacked at the top with those three talented players. But that didn't mean they were a great team. Everyone thought with that talent, they were definitely going to win the series, no matter what. And they did okay, winning 58 games, finishing behind the Chicago Bulls, who were led by the most valuable player that year, Derrick Rose. And that just goes to show you, even though they had these great stars, they weren't the best team even in their conference. But by the time they got to the playoffs, they were off to the races, defeating the Elton Brand and Andre Iguodala's 76ers in 5 games, defeating the Boston Celtics, who had their own Big Three in Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, in 5 games. And then they got to Chicago, who were the number 1 seed that year, and defeated Derrick Rose's led team also in 5 games. So they made it easily through the Eastern Conference, all the way to the NBA Finals. And who would they face that year? Well, it was a team that didn't have the hype of the Miami Heat. It was the Dallas Mavericks, led by head coach Rick Carlisle. They finished 3rd in the West, behind the San Antonio Spurs and the Los Angeles Lakers. And they were led by the face of their franchise, their Hall of Famer, Dirk Nowitzki. And they made some key moves in the offseason that really helped them. Of course, they already had Dirk, and future Hall of Famer Jason Kidd was back around for his second stint with the Dallas Mavericks. And then another great role player in Shawn Marion. But they made a trade getting Tyson Chandler. If you don't know Tyson Chandler, he's a center listed at 7'1", and this was also his second stint with the Dallas Mavericks. And the year after this, he would go on to win Defensive Player of the Year, and that's what really helped them. He gave them a defensive identity. And so they finished 3rd in the West and go on to face the Portland Trail Blazers, led by LaMarcus Aldridge and Brandon Roy, who they would beat in 6 games. And then they would go on to face the Los Angeles Lakers, who were coming off winning the 2010 championship. They were led by Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol, and despite them being heavily favored, the Mavericks were able to sweep them in 4 games. And then they went on to face the Oklahoma City Thunder, who at this time had 3 future Hall of Famers in Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook all on their team. And despite all that, Dallas beat them in 5 games, setting up a final against the heavily favored Miami Heat. Now, coming into the game, the Dallas Mavericks were an 18-1 shot of winning the title, which made them a huge underdog. And the game was set to play in Miami on May 31st. And despite Miami having these great scores on the team, you might notice how low the scores are in this final as I go through them, because it is interesting how much defense was a higher priority back then in these games. Because this first game, the first quarter ended with the Mavericks leading 17-16. There wouldn't be a whole lot of scoring after that, as the Dallas Mavericks led by 1 point at halftime. But the Heat came back in the third quarter to go on a 22-10 run, taking the lead 5-61, going into the fourth quarter. And Dallas was dealt a blow when their leader, Dirk, had injured his fingers with 4 minutes left to go in the game. Although he remained playing, it caused him to be less effective and let the Miami Heat take game 1, 92-84. Then in game 2, again in Miami, they come out and they end up tied at the end of the first quarter and at the end of the first half. But the Heat took off in the third quarter, just like they did in the first game, being up by 15, but the Mavs kept fighting back. And with under 30 seconds left to go in the game, Dirk hits a three-pointer, giving them the lead 93-90. Although Heat's role player Mario Chalmers hits a three as well just 2 seconds later. Then in the final possession of the game, the Mavs have the ball, drain the clock, and Dirk hits a shot, fading away as the buzzer rings to give them the lead and the win to tie the series 95-93. In Game 3, they head to Dallas to play for the first time, where the Heat took the lead in the first quarter and would not relinquish it. Although the Mavericks attempted to stay with them, they did not prevail, and Dirk took one final shot to tie the game at the end of regulation to send it to overtime, but missed his fadeaway, giving the Heat the lead in the series 2-1. Game 4 again was in Dallas, and they come out of the first quarter tied 21-all. Then the Heat take a 2-point lead at halftime. It was a back and forth affair with 12 lead changes and 15 ties. But Miami started to heat up in the third quarter as they normally had in the series and took a 9-point lead into the fourth quarter at 74-65. But Dallas fights back after this, where their sixth man, Jason Terry, scores 6 points, and the whole team scores 10 total points in a row, giving them the lead, which they would not look back from, and take the win 86-83. Despite Dwade's effort in this game, where he scored 32 points, the Mavericks took the game and tied the series. Then we go to Game 5, and this is still in Dallas, and this was one where they kind of opened the floodgates for scoring, with the Miami Heat leading 31-30. But the Dallas Mavericks would take a 3-point lead at halftime and win and continue to lead. And in the fourth quarter, they went on a 15-3 run, giving them the lead and the game, winning the game 112-103 and giving them the series lead 3-2. Now heading back to Miami, it put the pressure all on the Heat. They were the favorites. They had the big three, but the Dallas Mavericks switched their defensive strategy in this game and went to a zone defense for a large portion of the game, helping them with a 21-4 run, giving them the lead, which they would not relinquish the entire game. And they had stretched the lead all the way up to 12 in the final quarter with only 8 minutes left. Despite everything that James, Wade, and Bosh tried to do, they could not get back to the lead, and they ended up losing the game and the series 4-2, and Dallas became one of the biggest upsets in NBA Finals history. In the finals, Dirk led the series and became the Finals MVP, but they were really helped out by their bench and their sixth man, Jason Terry, who averaged 18 points for the entire series. But a big reason that people put the blame of this series on LeBron James is he averaged under 18 points the entire series, which is well below his career average and is one of his worst scoring performances in the playoffs. Everyone remembers this mainly as the Heat not living up to expectations. It should be more remembered for the great team effort that the Dallas Mavericks had. Yes, they had a MVP in Dirk Nowitzki, who was great throughout the series, but it was all their other players, such as J.J. Barea, Jason Terry, Sean Merriman, Jason Kidd. All these players together helped round out this team and give them the very first title in Dallas Mavericks history. And I want to thank Iron Mike and Jeremy S. from Twitter for suggesting this topic. If you have a topic you would like us to do an episode on, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. We would love to do an episode for you. Just leave us your name and the topic you would like us to cover, and we would love to do that just for you. And come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.